Okay, so what are your 1L primary classes? So law school, for those who don't know, if you go full-time, it's 3 years, right? If you go part-time, it's 4. But basically, your first year of law school, you're a 1L. Your second year, you're a 2L. And your third year, you're a 3L, okay? And the first year of law school is about the fundamentals. It's about breaking you down and building you back up. And when I say breaking you down, I'm not talking about from an emotional standpoint, although it does do that, but mainly a way of thinking, a way of, okay, how do we educate future lawyers and give them the skill set that when they leave here, whatever type of law they'll decide to do, they have the basic understanding of how the legal system is formed and how you need to approach understanding laws or issues, problems that come up within the law, right? So they break you down and build you up. And they're fundamental classes your first year of law school, okay? And here are the five fundamental, your 1L classes, the classes you're going to take. Criminal law, civil procedure, property law, contracts, and torts, okay? Criminal law, you're going to learn about the history of criminal law, where it comes from, and the basic criminal laws from theft all the way up to murder. Every state has a different way they approach each criminal law, but it all basically comes from the same place. It all comes from common law. All the laws come from common law for the main part. Civil procedure. That is the process for understanding how lawsuits and civil cases, not criminal, are litigated and the rules associated with them, right? There's rules about how you approach a case and timelines and deadlines and when you have to do it. So you understand that. Property law. You understand the history. It's also, all these classes like property law, criminal law, they're also kind of history classes too, because you're looking at cases from a long time ago up until current. So property law, you're understanding and learning what makes ownership. Like, how do you lose ownership? How does land relate to one another? What things can you do on your land? What things can somebody else do on your land? What agreements can be made? It's intense. I went to law school not thinking I'd find property law or contracts very interesting, and I loved both of those classes. The next class, contracts. Breaking down contracts, right? Offer, acceptance, consideration, the fundamentals of a basic contract, right? Statute of frauds, promissory estoppel, all these things. You're understanding how agreements are made and what makes agreements binding. It's crazy, right? It's on the surface, they might sound bland, but they're very, very interesting. And you can use your knowledge and skill set in any field going forward. If you have a basic understanding how all these things work, you're basically learning the fundamentals, the fundamental building blocks of things that you never even thought about, right? Like, yeah, what makes something binding? Is a gift binding, right? If somebody says they're going to give me a gift and they don't do it, can I sue them for it? Right? All these things. And lastly, torts. Okay. Torts. What is torts, right? Torts is okay, so civil procedure is the rules associated with civil law and things like that. Torts is what makes something a lawsuit. How can a person who has been injured receive civil damages, money damages in court? What's the history behind that, right? Basically, you're going to be learning about negligence and how the role it plays into understanding how these ambulance chasers, understanding how these big companies like Firestone, when they have an accident and one of their tires falls off a truck, who can be liable. And you understand and learn how far responsibility can go for certain products, right? Like if a product breaks down, whose fault is it, right? Who's at fault for ultimately somebody was damaged? Because the manufacturer here put the item in the vehicle, and the person drove the vehicle and hit another person. And if the person who was hit wants to sue, does it go all the way back to the person who hit him? Does it go back to the vehicle because the vehicle was messed up? Or does it go back to the manufacturer because did they do something, right? Torts is where you understand things like that. Those are the 5 fundamental law school classes that you're going to take your 1L year, your first year law school. It's interesting, man. It really is interesting. Some days I miss law school. Some days I miss 1L, but just for a second, just for a little bit, because it's intense and it's a lot. But yeah, those are the fundamental 1L classes.